We talked the other day about capitalism, right? The government should stay out of the economy. And we said that pure capitalism, where the government stays completely out of the economy, except for maybe protecting the people and people's property, um, maybe existed for 100 years in the United States and in Europe. These ideas came out of the Enlightenment period from a book written by a guy named Adam Smith. Um, It was largely in response to the mercantilist system that existed before. Um, but it doesn't last. But people start clamoring in the 1800s. They start saying, look, in this system of capitalism, what happens is that the businesses get too much power, and the businesses then mistreat their employees. People were working 6 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day. Children were working as young as 7 and 8 in dangerous jobs. Women were being paid a fraction, less than half or a quarter of what men got paid for working long hours as well. And eventually we start to see some socialist ideas coming out. First, there was utopian socialism in the early 1800s. These ideas were like, hey, let's share everything and share the wealth. And then we have Marxist socialism, which basically Karl Marx comes out and says, hey, let's have a violent revolution and take power from these rich business owners who are treating us terribly. But really the one that lasts is one called Evolutionary Socialism, which comes out in the late 1800s. And what it says is, look, we're not going to have a violent revolution. We're not going to share everything like the Native American version of maybe socialism or communism. Instead, let's just vote for people who have socialist ideas that we agree with. Okay? Let me give you an example of one of these socialist ideas. Unions, allowing people to work together to bargain for higher pay and better working conditions. An old age pension, an idea that when you get to a certain age, you should be able to retire and get money from a government. Disability, if you get hurt on the job, the government is going to pay you. And that these businesses should be paying into these systems. That you guys, this is what I just mentioned are of course the unions that help build this country. Well, we just celebrated Labor Day, which is in honor of unions, a holiday for unions. Social Security, the most popular government program out there, where old people to this day in America get money when they hit 65. And then disability is part of Social Security as well. So eventually, as our nation moves forward, Social Security and these ideas do come out during the Great Depression. They allow labor unions and negotiation of salaries and wages for its people. After World War II, even more things get added to our country that are socialist ideas, things like Medicare, health insurance for old people, Medicaid, health insurance for poor people, unemployment insurance. If you lose your job to no fault of your own, the government will pay you money for a few months. Free and reduced school lunches, Section 8 housing, WIC, healthy food for pregnant women. I mean, today our system is full of these ideas, putting regulations on businesses. Look, in the early 1900s, a guy named Upton Sinclair writes a book called The Jungle. And in his book, he writes about this meat packing industry plant that he visited. And he said that, oh yeah, on top of all the meat, there were a bunch of rats that were not just eating the meat, but also were defecating in the meat, right? They were pooping on the meat. And then when they died, it would all get ground up together and served to the people. And when the people read this, they freaked out. They said, what the heck? I don't want to eat rats, my meat, or rat poop, right? And bones and all that grossness. So we start putting regulations on businesses. You have to have healthy food, healthy product. And if it doesn't work, we'll shut you down. That's socialism also, right? Let me tell you another story. In the late 1900s or late 1800s, there was a linen factory where a lot of women worked who made clothes, okay? And they used to take a lot of cigarette breaks. So one day the boss owner got really mad at them and he put a chain around the door so that no one could get out to take cigarette breaks anymore. He said, you women are taking advantage and you're taking too many cigarette breaks. Well, then a fire broke out and everyone burned to death. Okay. And when this hit the newspapers, people said, that's not right. We need to have safe work conditions for our people. That's why sometimes you'll see, like, oh, maximum 100 people in this room, and fire marshal laws, and laws about safety in the workplace. Many children were losing arms and legs in some of the early factories that existed during this period as child labor. And we start to put limitations on the amount of hours children can work. To this day, I'm not quite sure what it is for you, but when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to work more than 20 hours a week until I was 16. Okay, and I was working at 11. Okay, I had no money growing up, so I got myself a job. Um, but all of these things, right, are socialist policies that are part of our modern economy. So no, we're not a pure capitalism, like you kind of see over here, pure capitalism. And no, we're certainly not a pure communist government. We're somewhere in the middle. Now, this chart, which I did not make up, puts us next to Japan in a little more capitalist leaning. Okay, right here, probably straight in the middle, are places like France and Sweden. More socialist leaning would be China and Venezuela, and North Korea is maybe the purest communism that exists in the world today. But we are what's called a mixed market economy, right? We're a market economy, which is a capitalist economy that has elements of socialism. It's mixed. All economies are mixed today. So looking at my little slide here, almost all economies are mixed. The US is one of the most capitalist countries, but by no means a pure capitalist country. We put rules on our businesses. Minimum wage is a rule, right? So many examples of rules businesses have to face: environmental rules, safety rules, safe products, no lead in paint on children's toys because they put it in their mouth. But all of these rules, these are elements of socialism. And also programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, tax breaks for companies. Look, how did Amazon pay $0 in taxes? Well, because there's a lot of tax breaks written into our tax code to help corporations pay less money in taxes. Those are also socialist, this government involvement in the economy, right? Food stamps, Section 8 housing, free and reduced school lunches, WIC. These are all programs that make us a mixed market economy.